Good day everybody, Guy Slocum here, leader of the Unity Party of New Zealand. A number of you have come to me recently and asked me to do a video on why one of our policies requires us to exit the United Nations and how we will do it. And those of you that have fed me that request feel that there are too few people in our electorate who do not fully understand why the UN has become unacceptable to us. Well, the trail all starts with an organization called the World Economic Forum, typically labeled as WEF. In my youth, the WEF was an international think tank to bring the leaders of the world together and simply discuss the various global issues that existed and come up with combined solutions. And that worked well for a number of years. And then at the head of the WEF emerged a man called Klaus Schwab, and he started to promote the notion of a world government where the sovereignty of each nation would be taken away and become subject to the edicts from this world government. And they produced a document called Agenda 2030 and another one called Agenda 2050 that uses some very highfalutin language that sounds very good, but effectively enslaves the people of the world, and most important of all, takes away the individual sovereignty of each nation. A little bit like the argument that's going on at the moment about digital ID. The argument is that digital ID will give people the opportunity to dip into all sorts of organizations and benefit from them. Now that's true, but the hidden agenda is that it will also allow government to control through the digital ID the actions, benefits, and opportunities for each individual. And so it is with the World Economic Forum. Their sustainability goals sound wonderful until you realize that actually to implement them will mean a loss of national sovereignty. Now the WEF, for a number of years, led by Klaus Schwab, with his passion for this global government, have been working away at the United Nations and their associated agencies. And it has got to a point now where the UN has basically adopted their policy and believes in world government. And you saw a little bit of this when the World Health Organization, which of course is part of the United Nations, told various nations to lock down their people, and the national governments got on and did just that. Now in those days it wasn't compulsory, but as we move forward it will become compulsory for national governments to obey whatever the WHO says, even if it's not in the interests of the national population. And so we do not support having our government of New Zealand subject to the edicts of an international unelected body. And we feel that the only way we can ensure the independent sovereignty of New Zealand government is to exit the United Nations and all associated agencies, and thereby remove the shackles of the WEF from any obligation on our behalf. Now, some people have said to me, well, why don't we just stay in the UN and pick and choose what we obey and what we don't obey? Well, unfortunately, that's not an option, because when you become a member of the United Nations, you sign a charter that says you will obey all their edicts. So if we care about individualism, individual sovereignty of the New Zealand government, we have no choice but to exit the UN. Now let me move on to how we would do it. Well, a lot of people say, won't there be a big fuss and won't there be a lot of pressure? And the answer is no, because if you think back to the Brexit days, when the UK told the European Union that they wanted to exit the Union, the European Union kept incredibly quiet, and all the negotiations went on in the back offices. Why? Because the European Union did not want other nations to get the same idea and exit the Union. And so it will be with the United Nations. We will simply advise them that we are no longer paying the annual fee of 50 million New Zealand dollars, and that we will, at the end of our membership period that has been paid for, not renew and thereby exit. Now, of course, they will come and negotiate with us, but the reality is that for all those reasons I mentioned earlier, we have no choice if we are to maintain our independence. So I hope that gives you an idea of why one of our flagship policies is exit the UN and all associated agencies. Please don't take my word for everything I've just said. Google Agenda 2030, Google Agenda 2050, Google WEF or World Economic Forum, and get the information for yourself from your own sources. And then I believe you will feel that our policy is just, and most important of all, follows an important edict within the Unity Party, and that is that all of our actions are designed to benefit the New Zealand people. So I hope that's been useful, and I'll speak to you all again soon. In the meantime, bye-bye for now.